Well, welcome back in for another Technique Tuesday. So last time we met, we talked about kicking our chippies up, our chipboard pieces up a notch. And one of the last technique that we went through, we created some of these pieces, using a combination of PowerTex's Easy 3D Flex and PowerTex's Universal Medium. And I used the ivory and I made this slurry. So I used a palette knife to put it on these pieces, and then we let it dry completely, and then we added color. This time, just because I want to really see the difference of how it looks, if there is a difference, I want to do the same thing, but instead of waiting for the Easy 3D Flex slurry to dry, I want to put the color on it while it's still wet and see if there's any type of a difference in the way that it looks. So another way that we can kind of kick these chipboard pieces up a notch. Alright, so we're going to get this slurry added to these chipboard pieces for our next trial, which is going to be adding that slurry and then adding the color on the wet slurry. So if you missed part 1, where we added the slurry and let it dry and then added the color, so part 1 of the kicking your chipboard pieces up a notch, I'll put it up here in the upper right hand corner for you to take a look at. Okay, so these are still wet and I'm going to start to apply, and I'm going to come in with the blue blister like we did last time, and then I'm going to come in with the Lost Shadow but in the oxide. I am going to dribble . And then I'm going to do these numbers This I'm going to come in with the Distress Oxide and then come in with the spray stain. And once again, I'm going to spray it over the whole thing. Actually, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to spray the whole thing in antique linen. And then I'm going to come in the same way we did before with the oxide in the wild honey. And load up pretty heavily. And just let that go where it wants to. There we go. Alright, I'm going to let that dry and we'll see what that does. And so on this one, I'm going to come in with the Lost Shadow, or spray stain, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to come in with the spray stain in the wild honey, just using the dripper, dripping with the nozzle just around the corners, and see what that ends up looking like. I did a index card, I'll show it here, using this same technique with the slurry, the Easy 3D Flex slurry, and I did it on a bread tab. Now, bread tabs are plastic, and this doesn't adhere to plastic, so I really sanded it well. Okay, on this one, I'm going to come in with Distress Oxide Broken China, and then I'm going to come in, where is it? Oh, here, with the blue Bister, and I'm going to dribble this using the paintbrush. I'm going to come in with the Spun Sugar Distress Oxide. And then I'm going to, with the paintbrush, let's see if I can get a drip off this end, with the Mahogany Bister. I am going to come in with a variety of the bisters, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually spray it with the Lost Shadow Oxide. I'm trying to go in easy so that color can come through. We might add more after it dries so we can get like that blue back a little bit, but we'll see what we have when we're done, when we're all said and done. So on this little one, I'm gonna come in with this alcohol spray. I do not know how it will react with this wet. We'll see. I'm not going to dry it. I'm going to let it burn off a little bit because you know how the alcohol dries pretty quickly. I'm going to let that happen, and then I'm going to come in with some brown Bister. I'm going to give it a shot with some water. That Bister does not want to move. We'll see if it starts to pool up in the same areas. And we have one left, this one here. And I'm gonna come in with tea dye oxide spray of green. Do something a little different. This green is a really earthy green. I love it. And now I am going to give it a spritz with the water because the oxide when they get water with them. So I want to see how that responds with that bistre on top. Alright, again, this was the Easy 3D Flex mixed with the Ivory Universal Medium. Then we added it while it was wet. We then added color. And we got some distinct white or ivory areas here when we let it dry. Here, it kind of did a, I don't know, kind of a mystical kind of ethereal look to it. Alright, so I think this is a really good opportunity not only to create some pieces to use in focal points, but also just to test out and see the differences. I think there's definitely a difference between where we let the 3D Flex slurry dry and then added color, and between those that we did where we used the 3D Easy Flex slurry and did not let it dry and put the color on it. Now, of course, I used a variety of different methods of color, but I did use what I used here, I did use here. So I think that what I can see, except for in these pieces, and it may be because these chipboard pieces are have much more absorption, I noticed, than the rest of them, is that these seem a little bit more muted. So here's a good example. Even though there's a color difference, you can see as the transition here is much more gradual. It's kind of softer, whereas here it has more of a glossiness to it. This is more matte, and it is more stark contrast from the lighter to the darker. Then this is a larger piece. Again, a color change, but again, those areas that were dry where there wasn't depth to the texture we created stayed very light in color, whereas here there's a lot more dispersion of the color. So I think that was probably true for a lot of these. This one I may not have sprayed on this side, is maybe why we got that stark color here. I know that this I did two colors on. I did a brown and I did a yellow. But that kind of gives you an idea. You're going to get a little bit more muted colors over here because it's going to absorb, the slurry itself is going to absorb the color a little more. So if you want drama, go with the drying in between color and placing it on there. And if you want more muted and overall kind of tones, then go with it wet. So that was a good exercise. So now let's get on to the next method of kicking your chips or chippies or chipboard pieces, whatever you call them, kicking them up a notch. Okay, so for this set, we're going to work with Crackle paste. I have two different kinds of Crackle paste here. I'm gonna just see how they each work on these different ones. I'm just gonna kind of mix it up a little bit. But I am going to do something else that's a little different. On a few of these, I'm going to apply color first and then the Crackle paste. So I'm gonna do them first, and then we will come back and start adding Crackle paste and let that dry naturally, because of course Crackle paste is best if you let it dry naturally. So I am going to do these. Will totally be Crackle first, And these I'm going to spray with color first. So that's where I'm going to get started on these. And I'm going to use an oxide. And I'm gonna let these dry while we start doing Crackle directly on these. So on this, I'm going to use a spray stain in Bundled Sage. I'm going to use an alcohol ink on this one. That was cinnamon. I'm going to do something a little darker. This is rust. And maybe a little bit of currant. And on this one, I am going to use this Dina Wakley Gloss Spray in Lime. I'm going to try and get this mixed up without getting too many bubbles in it. Okay, and then on this one, I think I'm also gonna use a Distress Oxide on this as well in the Bundled Sage. Now I'm gonna get those set to the side to dry. I just want to take the opportunity to see how they're going to react with the Crackle being on top of them. So first we're going to start off with the Distress. It's gotten pretty hard on me. I don't particularly care for it, so I don't know how this is going to work because it's very thick. But I guess we're going to see. And we're going to finish these off in the golden. And you can tell I am not precise. I like the ununiformity of stuff, so stuff peeking through, it always makes it that much more fun, in my opinion anyways.
You have always known when I need you the most. Oh, 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 oh. My best friend God sent my own good fortune. You know you are my double flame whisper, my soulmate sister. You know you are. Different days, but we're just as happy. Remember when you were fine, every day by my side. Oh, 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 oh. My best friend God sent my own good fortune. You know you are double You know you are. Oh, every time life gets rough, you know you are.
It's dry already. So I'm going to just go over the top of that Distress Oxide. I want to see if it kind of bleeds into the Crackle paste. I've never tested that before. It's interesting. This is bundled sage, and the blues on bundled sage came to the top. Okay, that was the alcohol ink. So we have a little bit of that is still wet on there. I'm just going to blot it up. That is not dry, so I am going to give it a bit of a dry with my dryer. Okay, I think that's fully dry. We're gonna find out. Okay, so we're gonna leave these to dry naturally and come back to them and go from there by adding some color. All right, these have fully dried. So now we're gonna start to add some color. And for the first thing we're gonna try is adding a little bit of this Amsterdam Burnt Umber ink. And I'm gonna actually water this down a little bit, mute it a little. Just gonna use a pipette to add a little bit of water, kind of stir that up. So what I want to do is I want to try and get this, I might use a pipette, and then I'll let that soak in for a minute. See it go into the cracks. Give it a little bit of encouragement. So that looks pretty cool. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of darkness over here. These I want to add some spray. And I think what I want to do is add a little bit of Lindy's. So Lindy's, this is a starburst in Tibetan poppy teal. I'm going to give it a little pop of water just to act as a carrier. And that really accentuates those cracks. And I'm going to kind of come over it, hoping to get some of that metallic, some of those mica particles to kind of come onto the surface. Now on this one, I'm going to go back and use that bundled sage. See if that holds some of that green. So it didn't really hold a lot of that yellowish kind of tone that we got. There's some here. I'm gonna go in with this peeled paint and just kind of dabber it on. Just trying to get it to hold on to some of that darker color. And I'm gonna follow that up with a little bit of this burnt umber ink and on this bottom edge and have it wick in to those cracks. And I think on this, I'm going to do a couple things. We'll see how it works. This will be new. This is a Marabou spray. They no longer make these. These, once dry, are not water soluble. They are waterproof. I was hoping it would sit more on the surface. But I really like how it's sunk in to the cracks. And we'll come back to that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that same thing, but a different color. This is gentian blue. It is a very dark blue, and I'm going to come back into that as well. Okay, so on this, I'm going to I'm going to come in with this brush acrylic mist spray in rose red. This is a gorgeous color. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of water and a brush. Come back. And I'm going to kind of paint this on. Now on this one, I left some of the chipboard coming through, hoping exactly this would happen. We get two different tones of the medium, the color medium we're adding. Okay, gonna let that dry. On this one, I'm gonna use this ink again. This is Whale Watch Blue. Now Lindy's has mica in it, so it'll be sparkly. Let's see if we got any. It's hard to see, but we did get sparkle. I'm gonna come in with some spray stain in sapphire, chipped sapphire, and just come in on the tips and let it pull in on any of the cracks. So I'm going to come in on this one with one of the glossies, and I'm going to pull that back a little bit. Let that dry. On this one, I'm going to come in with some Amsterdam turquoise green ink, acrylic ink, and just put it in the center, and I'm just going to come in and give it a spritz and let it bleed out. Then I'm going to come in and pull up some of the excess. This one really did not hold that ink on the surface here. So I'm going to come in some scorched timber in the oxide spray. I'm going to get a bit of a wet paintbrush. See if I can bring it down a little bit and let it taper off. Okay, on this, I'm going to come in with some oxide spray and sponge sugar. And I'm not going to spray this. I'm going to use my brush to apply it. And then I'm going to come in with this rose red acrylic mist spray. So it drops into those cracks, just along the outside edge where I see the cracks coming. And it will just wick in the liquid and colorize the sides of those cracks, which darkens them and makes them more apparent, stand out more. Alright, so we are down to this. I think I want to use peeled paint, Distress Oxide initially. I'm going to come in adding it to just where the cracks are, some burnt sienna in the brush acrylic mist. And I'm going to do it on all the straight edges, I think. Yeah, that looks really neat. I really like how that looks. Alright, so we're going to let these dry, and on a few of these I'm going to go a step further with them. Alright, so this is how everything looks after it has dried. This really turned out, the color all just went down into the chippy, and didn't stay in, it didn't absorb into the crackle paste. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to leave them as is and not do anything further. And on these, I am going to take them a notch up from where they are. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use some PowerTex Easy Varnish and some PowerTex pigments, 2 of the Power Color and 1 of the Color Tricks. The Color Tricks are metallic, so they got some glimmer to them. So bronze, gold, burnt sienna, and turquoise is what I'm going to be working with these. And we'll see what happens when we give them a little bit of pizzazz. So that's We just got to take these up a little bit and up a notch. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to also use titanium white. So we're going to work with those 3 power colors and the 1 color tricks. Yeah. All right, let's get going on that. So what I'm going to start doing is I am going to get my easy varnish put into a little container. I like to use these because then if I have anything left over, I can just write easy varnish on the lid and save it. So I'm going to give this a good shake. This stuff's awesome. I've not actually ever varnished with it. I just have used it for dry brushing. So essentially what we're going to do is dry brush with these pigment powders. So the other thing I'm going to need is a paper towel. Brushes, and I've kind of fallen in love with this little brush for dry brushing. So you want to start with a dry brush. That's the biggest thing to start off with. Okay. So what I'm going to do is start off with the titanium white. And this process is the same. We're going to go through and do it 4 different colors here, but basically it's the exact same process. So I'm going to walk you through one and then I'll speed up the rest so that this video isn't too long. So we're going to dip the brush into the varnish and hold it up and let it drip off. Sometimes if there's a drip just kind of pausing there, I'll just kind of pat it off to the side and get it. So that's exactly the amount that we need. And I also like to shake up my pigments a little bit because sometimes they settle. And I'm going to pick up some of the white. I'm just going to dip it in to the level of the varnish, and that should be good. So the first thing I'm going to do is wipe it off. That must sound weird, but yep, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to brush it off so I have very dry brush. And basically I'm just going to come in and catch only the texture and maybe the tips of these flakes. It's going to give it that icy, snowy feel that we associate with snowflakes. It's not a lot what we're doing, but it's going to make an impact. And just take this little chippy and take it up a notch. And as you can tell, I had enough to do that whole flake with what little I had on my brush, even though we wiped off. The key to this is to really keep your brush pretty dry. You don't want it to flood where you're adding. So there is our little snowflake. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add some of this white to this little dot as well. It has a burst of color there. I just want to give it some highlight. So I'm going to clean off my brush really well before I start. And then I'm going to get it dried off as best as I can, as dry as I can get it. Kind of squeeze it out a little bit. And I'm basically going to do the exact same thing. Dip, get the drips off. I like to tap it off a little bit because this brush seems to want to hold. There we go. And then I'm going to dip just at the tip. Grab some pigment. This is a very small item, so we probably have way too much for that, but that's okay. I'm going to pat some off, get it smushed into the bristles of my brush so it's pretty dry. And on this one, I'm going to pretty much come around the edges, give it kind of a white halo almost around it. And then just catch some of that texture. It's not a lot, but it kicks it up. Alright, I'm going to continue doing the exact same thing with these other colors, and I'm going to speed this up.
Oh, oh, oh. My best friend God sent my own good fortune. You know you are my double flame whisper, my soulmate sister. You know you are. Oh, every time life gets rough, you know you are the one that picks me up, the one that fills my cup. You know you are, and we are inseparable. We are so unbreakable. My best friend God sent my own good fortune. You know you are my double flame whisper, my soulmate sister. You know you are. Oh, every time life gets rough, you know you are the one that picks me up, the one that fills my cup. You know you are. We may have it all, up the ladder, down the wall, different mysteries, full life mixed with tears. We are happy most of the time, and we get along better than fine. Left and right we braid, through the ups and downs we sway. It's easy either way. When I'm covered in tears, you scare away them fears. Together we know how to be more than our vows. We are happy most of the time, and we get along better than fine. Left and right we braid, through the ups and downs we sway. It's easy either way. Paper kites carrying dynamite. We are in full bloom under the moon. We are got me like in a box. I adore everything you touch. Say, do you believe that we were meant to be? My body craves identity. Green mango peach, what a tease. Calling me like the rainbow. Oh, pretty please, take it easy. No one likes push and shove. Let go of control. Ooh, 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 ooh. In under fallen treasured skies, I'm staring deep into your green eyes. Well, two is one, so we begin. Oh, I follow you till the end, my darling. Green mango peach, what a tease. Calling me like the rainbow. Oh, pretty please, take it easy. No one likes push and shove. Let go of control of all you think you know and how you want us to be. Oh, let go. You got me like in a box. I adore everything you touch. Say, do you believe that we were meant to be? My body craves identity. Green mango peach, what a tease.
And this is the Crackle paint that we added to the chippies. And then some of them we went further and we added pigment using the Easy Varnish by PowerTex and their pigment powders. Some of them are metallic. This one we added 2 of the pigment powders. And we got these looks. So a lot of fun here is the file folder piece. I didn't add any pigments to this. This is just the Crackle paint and some coloring. I do have a new series that came out. The first one came out in August. And if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I'll put it in the upper right hand corner for you to view. The PowerTex product intro series. So it's a short limited series where I'm just going to go over a different product each month. I'm going to show you samples of it being used, all the details about the product, smells, how it works, what it does, etc. So we have used some PowerTex products here already, but be on the lookout for that series. I will link it, like I said, up above here.
And let's enjoy the